Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Nintendo Watcher Podcast. I'm Justin, joined as always by my co-host, Matthew. Matthew, what's up?
Hey, Justin. Good to be back.
Yeah, good to be with you. So this is podcast number 35. It's our 2023 resolutions and predictions pod. So we've
35-2 for the listeners, actually. We had some technical difficulties the first attempt, so you're getting this a little later than we had intended, but episode 35 for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. So we've gone through, we've done a total dress rehearsal for this. So
it's not going to help at all.
No, it won't help whatsoever. So this is our first podcast of the year, and we wanted to talk about our gaming resolutions for the upcoming year and pin down some predictions for 2023. What's going to happen in the world of Nintendo? We're using that pretty loosely, not just Nintendo games, but what's going to happen with the Switch, what's going to happen with Nintendo as a company. So we've got a pretty wide variety, I think, of predictions between the two of us. Matthew, do you want to say anything else about like how we came up with our predictions, or what the criteria was?
Basically, it was 5 predictions each, right? No repeats. We wanted to try to get them as varied as possible, and we wanted to make them not any like sort of slam dunk guesses, right? We kind of wanted to try, at least for most of them, right? There's a few that may seem obvious, but we tried to get ones that are a little bit more complex or kind of wishful thinking as far as our predictions go. So some of them will feel very impossible. Others will feel a little bit more grounded, but we wanted to kind of take a shot here at some things we're hoping to see from Nintendo in 2023.
So before we jump into all of that, we wanted to talk about some changes that have been going on. You've probably already noticed them at Nintendo Watcher, but some other things that we're planning on doing in the future as well. So the first thing is we launched a video portion of the podcast on YouTube. The past few episodes have been uploaded. They're usually abbreviated versions of the podcast. So you can go watch and actually see us do this podcast. And we encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what else you want to see from us.
Yeah. In addition to that, right, this year in 2023, we're going to be expanding to try to get a little bit more community involvement on Nintendo Watcher and with the pod and everything. So we're going to be launching a sort of play along this year, I guess is the best way to put it, right? It may go into 2024, but we're calling it, the actual term for what we're going to call it is kind of up in the air, but essentially what we're doing is we're planning to play through the entire chronology of mainline Final Fantasy games from Final Fantasy 1 through the upcoming 16. I know 16 is not going to be on the Switch. Not everything's on the Switch, so we will go off Nintendo for a couple of these, but we're going to be playing through the entire mainline Final Fantasy games and covering those on the pod, hopefully with some special guests. If you're out there and you listen to the pod and you're a creator or someone who wants to get involved with the conversation, reach out to us on Twitter or in the comments on YouTube and let us know. We're looking for people who have passionate feelings about various games in the franchise. We want to bring people on. We want to talk with them, and we want to run through the series just kind of as a big community get together this year. So it's a series that Justin and I really love, and we've wanted to play through it from start to finish for a while now. We figure, well, what better way to do that than to weave it into Nintendo Watcher. So we'll have some streams for that, we'll have some podcasts for that, and we'll have a lot of community involvement with that particular sort of extravaganza this year.
Yeah, can't wait. It was spurred by the news that the Pixel remasters are finally making their way to consoles. Really excited to play through some of those games. Some of the early games I've never played through before. Matthew, I can't remember if you have or not.
Not
I know
all
like
of them.
2
There's
and
a
3.
There's a few earlies that I've missed. I've actually never played 4, which is perhaps the biggest oversight in my opinion. That's one that I've heard really, really good things about. I've always wanted to play it. I've just never gotten around to it. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, me too. The other thing we're doing to encourage some community is actually hosting community nights where we all get online, we're all playing the same Nintendo Switch Online game together. So maybe that's Mario Kart or Mario Golf. Maybe we'll get a Strikers League together, Smash Bros. We really just want to get everybody together to play a game and have some fun. So yet to be determined exactly what technology we'll use to make that happen. But check out our YouTube and Twitter for sure to keep up with updates and stuff and when we're going to be going live. We'll talk about it far in advance. So if you want to join in, you want to play with us, you'll have plenty of notice.
Absolutely. Yeah. So those are the big ones. Those are the kind of, immediate changes, or I should say, upcoming events and community involvements, that we're trying to get going with the podcast. So that really covers what we've got, changing or in process here at Nintendo Watcher. And so we're going to go ahead and get right into it, Justin. This year, we decided that in addition to coming up with a list of predictions, we'd also go through some gaming resolutions. So each of us have picked 3 resolutions for this year. There again, gaming related, podcast related, Nintendo Watcher related. So it's kind of a mix of things, mostly gaming focused, small, big, everything in between. So we're going to run through these real quick. We're not going to spend a ton of time on them, but we'll come back at the end of the year to check in. How well did we do, right? Did we hit our goals or did we miss our targets wildly like I did last year? So
just a reminder, what were yours last year?
Yeah, we don't want to talk about it. My second resolution this year is a similar one from last year. It's the follow-up. So we'll just go ahead and get right into it. The first one is for me, right? So these will be my 3 resolutions. First one is weekly gaming streams, right? I plan to start hosting some weekly streams on either Twitch or YouTube, maybe both. Get those up and running sometime by mid-February, early March is when I plan to, want to do some troubleshooting, a couple test streams before I dive into committing to, jumping on weekly. But we'll be doing some, or at least I will be doing some community streams via Twitch and YouTube or YouTube this year. So one weekly stream at least, if not multiple days, right? So we'll look more at that as the year goes on, but I'm setting myself kind of a firm deadline of early March to get those up and running on a regular basis. So we'll see. We'll know very early on whether or not I failed at this particular resolution.
Do you have an idea of what game you're going to stream, or is it just going to be whatever you're playing at the time?
Whatever I'm playing at the time. A lot of it will be the Final Fantasy that we're playing through together, right? I'll be streaming portions of those games. I'll also be, one of the first games that we'll probably, stream if I get this up running earlier than I anticipate will probably be Fire Emblem Engage, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. So we'll be getting that one up there probably for test streams. And, if it goes well, we'll just continue on with that. But it's going to mostly be a mix of what's coming out and what I'm playing just for the podcast. So,
and we'll link to Matthew's stream in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll get all that set up. Resolution number 2, it's the pickup from last year. I fumbled the ball on my backlog. I didn't complete my ambitious goal of knocking off 3 games from my backlog for every 1 new game I played. There was too many new games in 2022. We talked about this in the Game of the Year pod. A banger year for video games in 2022.
Unbelievable.
Too many new things that I was absolutely not going to wait on. So I ended up buying more games than I probably should have. And as a result, my backlog fell to the wayside. So this year I've set a slightly less ambitious goal, which is 24 total games off of the backlog this year. These can be games of short length, long length, anything in between. I plan to try to average 2 a month, right? That's why we're setting it at 24. I may, knock out 3 in a month. I may make it only 1 in another month, but the end result is 24 by the end of the year. That's the hope. We'll see if I can pull it off. I don't know. Last year didn't go so well. I think I maybe got 13 or so off of my backlog last year, but that was because, like I said, I kept adding new things and I just wasn't as committed as I needed to be. And the final resolution, this one's a simple one. I never completed a 100% run of Breath of the Wild, a game that I absolutely love, have played through multiple times. And so my resolution this year is to complete a 100% run of Tears of the Kingdom when that launches. A small goal, an easy goal, but one that, is unpredictable, as we saw with Breath of the Wild, 900 Korok seeds, 900 plus Korok seeds. I wasn't doing that. So maybe I have to do that if they're back again in Tears of the Kingdom. But yeah, I want to see everything that game has to offer. So
yeah, that's a real black box of a resolution there. Yeah. You have no idea what they're going to put in that game.
No, the game could suck for all we know, but I'm committed to it. So we'll see. I'm going to see everything that game has to offer. That's the plan there. Again, an easy one, kind of a slam dunk, I think. This is the one that I think I can keep out of all of the 3 that I've listed. This is the one I feel most confident on. what about you, Justin? What have you got on the agenda this year?
Yeah, so transitioning to, I think the easiest one on my list is completing all of the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters. We're already planning on doing it for the podcast anyway. I finished the first one late last year. I bought all of them on my Steam Deck because I thought, oh, they're never coming to the Switch. Well,
shortly after.
Yeah, like a month afterwards, we got the announcement that they were coming to the Switch. But
So it
anyway,
goes.
playing through the first 6 Final Fantasy games that are in the Pixel Remaster bundle, I'm really excited to play through those, especially playing through them at the same time as you and talking about what's good and what we like about them. The second thing is you have your stream resolution for Nintendo Watcher, and I have a similar resolution for Nintendo Watcher, but it's more focused on writing and producing feature content. So feature videos and feature articles for NintendoWatcher.com. These are going to be like top 10 lists, games you have to own, hidden gems for older consoles, retro games that we're looking to get ported to the Switch, or games that we want to see remastered maybe. So it's going to be a mix of new stuff and also retro gaming. I'm really excited to get into that. I've been doing a lot of research and making some lists and playing through some old games, honestly, to try to figure out what's worth covering now. The Switch is awesome for new stuff, but it's also a really great machine for playing older games, especially older PS1 games.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes, because I know we've both been talking about getting more regular with the content that we're putting out as far as the website and YouTube goes. I think 2023 is going to be a big year for us to kind of hammer some of that down and really kind of grow those avenues. So I'm hoping to see a lot more. I'm hoping to get involved a lot more with those angles as well, doing a little bit more writing for the site, a little bit more video producing for the YouTube. So hopefully I can piggyback on that one and we can make that one a reality. So
yeah, so I'm committing to bi-weekly features.
Nice.
So twice a month, long form piece on the website that has a corresponding video on YouTube. So that's
great.
That's the resolution. So 24 of those this year. And then my final resolution is scratching 12 games off my backlog.
Okay. All right. More manageable.
Yeah, I don't think I could do 24, just looking at some of the other games that we know are coming out this year, especially a lot of the RPGs. I just don't know if I'm going to have time to get through 24 like you. That's a laudable goal. I'm so glad you said it, but I think 12 is even going to be pushing it for me. We'll see what happens. I think I'm going to have to be strategic about it. Which games am I putting in my backlog list at which time, so that when we're playing Fire Emblem Engaged this month, for example, what's a shorter game that I can have to bounce off of whenever I get into a rut with that game.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a more realistic number than my 24, right? I think you'll probably be the one more successful by the end of the year, but we'll see, right? I'm determined to at least get halfway through. So maybe I'll tie you at the end of the year if if I do poorly. But I mean, that's it for us. Those are the resolutions, right? It's nothing major. We're trying to keep them simple this year. Achievable goals is what we're hoping for. See some growth with the website, some growth with the pod, and some shrinkage in our backlogs. That's really the goal for 2023, is to just make it through without putting more burden on ourselves. So that about wraps that up. So what else are we covering today, Justin? What's part 2?
We're talking about our 5 predictions each for 2023. Again, these are predictions that are Nintendo related, but they're not necessarily like games coming out for the Switch. We were pretty fast and loose with this because the Switch means so many different things to different people. Nintendo has a lot of different things going on outside of the Switch this coming year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to go back and forth. Matthew, what is your first prediction for 2023?
All right, so my first one's a bit of a doozy. I think my longest prediction of the night, and that is that we will, and again, we should say right up front, right, we're basing this all off of just pure guesswork. At the time of recording, if anything's been announced since this episode goes live, we didn't know that was happening. It was pure happenstance. But my first prediction is that the Metroid Prime trilogy will be announced this year for the Nintendo Switch. I think it's happening. I think there's, I've said for a long time that I think once Dread came out, it was clear that Nintendo has decided to get back into the Metroid, into the Metroid series in a real meaningful way. And I think that the next logical step is to prime us for Metroid Prime 4 by releasing the original trilogy on the Switch. Now, whether that's a remake, remaster, whether it's announced as the whole trilogy ported at once, or if it's just, the first one being remade with the later two to come later, I don't know. But my prediction is that we will hear of plans to bring the Metroid Prime trilogy to the Switch at the same time that we receive a release date for Metroid Prime 4. But that release date will be in 2024. So it's a complicated prediction. Metroid Prime trilogy gets announced for the Switch at the same time as a 2024 release date for Metroid Prime 4. That is prediction number one.
How awesome would that be to go back through at least the first Metroid Prime game with, modern controls, dual analog sticks. I tried to go back and play the game GameCube version maybe a year ago, and it felt so clunky just trying
It's hard
to figure out the controls again and get back into that 2003 2004 mindset or whatever year it was.
I've been playing a little bit, right? I dabbled a little bit in the Prime Hack on Steam Deck, right? I own a copy of the Metroid Prime trilogy, so I got the ROM on my Steam Deck as well, just to check out Prime Hack. If the Metroid Prime trilogy makes it to the Switch and it's anything like just throwing Prime Hack on top of it, it's going to be, it's going to be an amazing time for people who've never experienced the series, or even fans that played it before on the, older consoles and want to check it out again. So hopefully this will happen. Again, it's a shot in the dark. It's kind of my probably least likely prediction of the bunch, but we'll see what happens. So what about you? What's your first prediction for this year?
I think this is probably the easiest prediction for me, but I don't know. Maybe it's controversial. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. I don't think we're going to get any new Nintendo hardware this year. No Switch 2, no Switch Pro. We'll get the new Zelda Switch and some other themed OLED models. Yep, but I don't see any new iteration of the Switch coming this year.
So nothing that pushes it forward is kind of the prediction.
Which is unusual, right? Because we've got this big Zelda game coming out. Yep. We've talked about this off mic that Nintendo tends to line up its hardware releases with that big Zelda game or that big Mario game.
I'm torn on this one because I think we will hear about new Nintendo hardware this year. I think towards the end of the year, if not around the time of Tears of the Kingdom, by the end of the year, we will hear about plans for a Switch 2 or Switch Pro. We will not get it. It will not come out this year, but I do think we will hear something about it in the latter half of the year. Again, it's been up and down in the rumor mill for years on this. For like the last 3 years, we've been hearing rumors of this. So at some point, the other shoe's got to drop and we've got to get something. But I do think that, you're probably going to be right on this, though I'm holding out hope that we get a late, holiday announcement, if not release, for whatever the successor to the Switch will be. I mean, I think we're due, but at the same time, the Switch is holding up fine, contrary to what a lot of people believe. So we'll see.
Yeah, look at Xenoblade 3, right? That game, I think, is probably pushing it as far as it can go, but it looked great, played really well. The only thing I'm thinking about in terms of if maybe there is a late 2023 announcement about a Switch successor, what's the big game that they pair with it?
Mario.
Because we're not going to get another Zelda for several years.
It's Mario.
It's got to be Mario, right? I'm shocked we don't have Odyssey 2 already.
Yeah, it's going to be whatever the next Mario is. We're going to get that announcement after the movie comes out, or right around the time that the movie comes out. This isn't an official prediction, but we'll probably hear about the next Mario sometime around there, and it'll be the launch title. That's my guess. If we are getting a launch title, it's going to be a Mario game.
Yeah, and then Nintendo will port Mario Kart 8 Deluxe over to the Switch 2. Yeah. That'll be the bestseller.
Yep, it'll be Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Prime. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, What's your next prediction, Matthew?
So my second prediction is another series that I've been waiting for a while, and one that I think we are overdue for an announcement, and that is we will get a new Donkey Kong Country announced this year. However, it will be announced with no release date, right? So that's key to the prediction is it will be announced similarly to Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime 4, Tears of the Kingdom when they were first announced, or I should say Breath of the Wild sequel. We'll get that announcement. We'll get a short little snippet or two of footage, and then they'll go dark for the rest of 2023, and we'll probably resurface in 2024 with a release date. That's my guess.
So the other piece of that, we were talking off mic about, we still don't have Mario or Donkey Kong 64 on Nintendo Switch Online.
I think one thing that will probably happen is if there is an announcement for New Donkey Kong Country, it will coincide with, maybe not the exact same time, but nearby, we will get an announcement of Donkey Kong 64 heading to the Nintendo Switch Online. In fact, I think what'll probably happen is if we get Nintendo 60 or Donkey Kong 64 on the Nintendo Switch Online this year, it's going to be the sort of precursor to an announcement of a new Donkey Kong Country. So that'll come first. We'll get, oh, hey, we're adding a couple games to the NSO. Here's Donkey Kong 64. A few months later, right, as soon as it comes out on the console, hey, look, we've also got a new Donkey Kong in the works. So that's probably the timeline, how I see it playing out. But I'm hopeful. I mean, I love Donkey Kong 64. I know that's a controversial take from some people, but I want to see it, and I want more Donkey Kong because it's one of my favorite Nintendo franchises.
Yeah, I think we have to see Donkey Kong 64. Again, not an official prediction, but I think we have to see it this year just because they're running out of first-party games to put on Nintendo Switch Online for the 64. I mean, the 64 only had like a few hundred games on it, and most of them are third-party games. They're just running out because of licensing issues or just games that didn't sell well in the first place. Sports games and things like that. So we're really getting down to the nitty gritty. And I think Donkey Kong 64, I'll have to take a look at the list again, but I think Donkey Kong 64 is one of the last big first party games
to be announced,
being excluded right now.
Yeah, I think we'll get it. I think they're holding it for the next Donkey Kong Country. I think that I mean, it makes sense from a marketing perspective. It's something that they would do. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's my second one. Justin, where are you going for your second prediction this year?
We've already said that we're not sure that Tears of the Kingdom is going to be, the greatest game in the world. It's really hard to follow up something like Breath of the Wild, just probably the greatest game, ever made for the Switch. I have a hard time seeing anybody top that, even Nintendo. But I think it will be nominated for Game of the Year this year, Tears of the Kingdom, but it will lose. And it will lose to Spider-Man 2.
Interesting. I don't know about that.
A 2-part prediction. I might get partial credit for it, but it will be nominated, but it will lose.
I'm gonna say you're gonna get a goose egg on this. I think regardless, I find it hard to believe that Tears of the Kingdom won't be Game of the Year this year. I'm just trying to think across, what we know about what's coming. I mean, Starfield could be a major contender for Game of the Year. I don't see Spider-Man 2 being it though. Right? Like if I'm thinking Game of the Year, I'm thinking it's going to be Starfield or Tears of the Kingdom. That seems like the 23.
We've got Final Fantasy too.
Prediction. And Rebirth. Yeah, could also, though Rebirth might not come out this year.
No. Final Fantasy 16.
Oh yeah, 16. That's right. That's a good point. Like, yeah, we've got those 3 games coming out this year. I think it's a crowded year for Game of the Year. I'm thinking, Nintendo tends to be a critical darling when it comes to Game of the Year. With that, and we're talking Game of the Year at like the Game Awards, right?
Yeah,
like,
the Game
in
Awards.
Particular. Okay. Just to clarify, because yes, it will win Game of the Year at least at every Nintendo publication out there, right? But we're talking specifically at the Game Awards. Okay, clarifying that. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible that Spider-Man 2 is this amazing. I mean, I'm excited for that game. I think it's going to be great. I just don't know. I don't know.
I think Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man was so great. The DLC, Miles Morales DLC was awesome. I think Spider-Man 2 is going to take advantage of the power of the PlayStation 5, and it's just going to blow us all away.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting year. across the board, because there's a lot of stuff. I feel like going into 2022, we had a pretty good idea of some of the big titles that were going to come out. And this year we've got a handful of those, but there's still a lot that's unknown with 2023. So it could be a very interesting year for Game of the Year at the end.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to switch up just to follow up that. I'm going to flip a couple predictions here and go with another prediction of mine, which, as someone who was just saying, hey, I think Tears of the Kingdom will be Game of the Year this year, I'm going to come back in and temper that with the fact that my third prediction is that Tears of the Kingdom will score lower on Metacritic than Breath of the Wild. This is probably my safest prediction, or I should say at least the one that is the least, the least hypothetical. I think that Tears of the Kingdom will score lower than Breath of the Wild. I think it's very hard to follow up something like Breath of the Wild. And unless they really add something, unless we get, playable Zelda, or, the twist that we're actually playing as young Ganondorf, or something like that, and, the new mechanics turn out to be really great, I do think it's going to score lower than Breath of the Wild on Metacritic.
Yeah, and so much of the game we already know is going to depend on Breath of the Wild. It's the same engine. Lots of the same geographies. I think it's gonna get points deducted because it's gonna feel a lot like Breath of the Wild DLC.
Yeah, I do think I think that is kind of where my hesitation. Like, I still think it's going to be good enough to win Game of the Year, or at least to be in the conversation. But I don't think it's going to score as well as Breath of the Wild did. Simple prediction, but yeah.
Well, it's one of those situations where no matter how good it is, people are always going to go, "Yeah, but."
Right. Right. I'm hoping to be wrong. I'm very excited for Tears of the Kingdom. It seems like we're being kind of harsh on that game. We're not as excited as we probably are, but I think it is probably both of our most anticipated game of next year. So just to put that out there, right? We're not trying to bash anything about Tears of the Kingdom, but being a little pragmatic about it. So that's my third prediction. Justin, what about you?
I think that we've seen so many remasters and remakes, especially from Square Enix over the past couple of years. I think we're due for a Final Fantasy Tactics remastered this coming year. We almost got it with Triangle Strategy. Like, that really felt like Final Fantasy Tactics, but it was part of the NVIDIA leak a year ago or so now. It's one of the only games in that leak that hasn't seen the light of day yet.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty good chance we get that remaster this year, and maybe even soon.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty safe prediction. Because of the leak. I mean, so far we've seen, as you said, pretty much everything on that leak has come true. Most of it last year. I do think my only hesitation for this is a very heavy year for Final Fantasy. And I could see them holding off until 24 for Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, because they don't want to go up against Final Fantasy 16, Rebirth, and what will likely be a Final Fantasy 14 expansion announcement in the latter half of the year. We're on the cycle right now where Final Fantasy 14 should be getting, the announcement for its next expansion. I think it is coming. I don't know if this is the year, which it seems weird, right? Because the NVIDIA leak was so long ago, and we've seen so much of it. So you're probably going to be right on this, but I could also see them pushing it for the fact that this is already a very tight year for Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get Rebirth this year. I think that plays heavily into my prediction here. Rebirth will be next year, so they don't have two, major mainline Final Fantasy games in the same year.
You're probably right. It'll probably be an early 24, because they said winter, so it could be anywhere between December through March or whatever. So that's absolutely a good point, valid point.
I'm thinking next fall, Square Enix puts out the Final Fantasy Tactics game, and they probably put out a few other remasters or smaller games like they did this past year with Deifield Chronicle, Harvestella. Like, I could see them batching out 3 or 4 smaller, almost like second tier games, and I think Final Fantasy Tactics would be one of those second tier games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fair prediction. Yeah, I hope you're right. Right, Final Fantasy Tactics is one of my favorite games. Hopefully, we'll also get a Tactics Advance and Advance 2, even though those are kind of the lesser Tactics games by most standards. All right, so that brings me to my fourth prediction. Um, I'm a big fan of Nintendo going weird. I like when they do strange stuff. I bought Ring Fit Adventure as soon as it was announced. Played it only a handful of times because I'm lazy and I don't like to work out. That's what it
Same
really
here.
comes down to. But it rules. It's a great idea, fantastic concept. I loved myself Mario Kart Live again as a concept. I never got it because I don't have the space for it. It's not really something that fit in my house. Mostly carpet floors and whatnot, so it just wasn't for me. And the Labo, right? I think if you have kid, Labo is a really cool little creative way to get them interested in video games and stuff by also making it, a fun sort of activity that you can do with them. That said, my prediction is that this year we're going to get the next wild, right? How do we call it? New peripheral
Hmm.
from Nintendo, right? We're gonna get something akin to the Labo, the Mario Kart Live, the Ring Fit Adventure. I don't know what it's going to be. It'll probably have a proprietary controller of some sort. That's kind of the prediction, right? A peripheral with some sort of proprietary controller. I think that's really what most of those have in common, right? The Labo's got the little toys that you build, which become controllers that you use. Ring Fit's got its little ring and leg strap, and then Live has its Live stuff, the little carts that you roll around and stuff. So I think we'll get some sort of new control mechanism for the game. That's going to be the peripheral. I don't know what it'll be. I don't know if it'll be fitness related or just fun, but we're definitely going to be getting something in that vein this year.
I could see that happening. That's a good prediction. I love the weird Nintendo stuff too. Like even
Mhm.
going back to like the NES and all the weird stuff they put
Yeah.
out for the NES, the Zapper, the like Twister style
Give us another
mat.
Power Glove. Let's do Power Glove too.
Yes,
Let's
the
just
Power
do it.
Glove. Okay, my next prediction is again Nintendo related, but not necessarily video game related. I think that the Super Mario movie is going to be better than a lot of people are giving it credit for right now. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's going to have a Rotten Tomatoes score at 85% or higher.
We need to clarify something. Are you talking Rotten Tomatoes fan or critic score? Because this is
Fan
really
score.
crucial. Okay.
Fan
So at
score.
85 fan score, what do you think the critic score will be?
I think it'll be close to that, but
Higher or low? We'll just do
it'll be lower.
higher or lower.
I think it's going to be in the 70s. So I think it'll
Okay.
be a little lower, but I think the fans are going to be the root of this prediction is I think fans are going to be blown away by it because expectations are so low.
Mhm.
With all the hate for Chris Pratt voicing Mario and all that stuff. I think when they see it and they see this world, fully realized in a way that we've really never seen Mario in
Mhm.
a movie before. I think it's going to blow everybody out of the water and at least 85% fan score.
I think that's fair. I think review bombs aside, if there's any of those, I do think that we'll see a high score for this because I've been won over by the trailers. I don't know about you, but
Yep, same here.
wasn't really high on it at first. Thought it was going to be pretty middling based off of history, but I'm kind of bought in after the handful of trailers we've seen so far. They've the animation looks really good. Most of the voice work is really well done. I like the direction they're going with a lot of the characters from the look of things. Peach looks like she's going to just kick ass again like she normally does, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
great. I also kind of like the weird kind of isekai storyline where Mario's just thrown into this world and has to learn how to do things, right? We just get training montages and whatnot. Like, yeah, I'm for it, right? It also looks like they're going to be, incorporating a lot of other Mario games into the fold with that movie. So, yeah, I think we're going to get a pleasant surprise with that when it comes out later this year. Yeah, good prediction. Good prediction. That brings us to my last prediction for 2023, which is a relatively simple one, but one that has absolutely no guarantees. Which is that Monolith Soft is going to announce a new IP this year.
Wow.
We just had Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I know they've done a lot of work on other first party games with Nintendo, right? They're very involved in Tears of the Kingdom and a lot of other first party games. And so they're stretched pretty thin, right? For the most part, we know that there's a big DLC coming for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 this year, which makes this prediction by no means a guarantee.
Well,
However,
you're just saying just an announcement, though, right?
yeah, but a brand new IP, right? I'm not talking a new Xenoblade game. I'm not talking a port of X. I'm talking a brand new from scratch IP. Yeah, just an announcement of one, because I think that if we look at the way that studio has been ramping up in the last couple of years, they've grown tremendously since Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I think they're up over something like 300 employees, where they started at double digits to low triple digits, and now they're up over 300 employees or something like that. If I recall correctly, I might be getting those numbers way off.
You're right.
But
I think you're right.
the fact that they have put so much effort into recruiting and building up a platform, a really productive company that has a lot of trust under Nintendo, leads me to believe that they've got something else cooking that we haven't heard yet, right? And that this will be the year that they finally announce it. Because truly, I mean, aside from a new Donkey Kong, a new Mario, we don't, and Metroid Prime 4, right? Which are the three pillars of Nintendo, right? Outside of Zelda, we don't have much of anything else from Nintendo first party companies coming out this year, unless you're counting the Kirby, but we already know everything about the Kirby Dream Land remaster.
Yeah.
So we don't really have any big surprises this year, and I think that Nintendo has a good track record each year of at least giving us some big surprise. And I think that this year, yes, it'll probably be a Mario or a Donkey Kong game, but in addition to that, I think Monolith Soft has something up their sleeve, and I'm hoping that is true, because I'd love to see them get a chance to do something a little bit different.
That surprise almost has to come because we don't know anything about the second half of 2023.
Right.
Nintendo is going to need some big game to go into the holidays with.
Exactly.
Maybe it comes out in October, November, and we just know nothing about it right now. Like you said, we're sort of at the limits of
Is it June for Tears?
I think it's June. Yeah.
So I mean, after that, right?
Right. We've got Fire Emblem early, and then Tears of the Kingdom, Advance Wars may at some point come out, but that's not gonna sell a whole bunch of consoles.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? So it's May 12th is Tears of the Kingdom. Okay.
May 12th.
Yeah, but still, after that, right? We've got nothing on the docket that I can think of. So I'm hoping that this happens. I think Monolith Soft is poised for a huge breakout after Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I think they're poised for something big, and I'm hoping that's a new IP.
Yeah, me too. All right, my final prediction. I'm going back to SquareSoft for this one, or Square Enix. SquareSoft. Look at me. Going back to Square Enix for this one. I think we're going to see more and maybe even get Dragon Quest 12 this year. We already know it's a much darker Dragon Quest. Basically, all we've seen so far is the title screen of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's not going to have turn-based combat.
Yeah, and this is something that I don't know, because we've heard rumors that this might be the case, right? But at the same time, there's just as much to suggest that that's not what they were talking about when they were talking about some of the stuff. Some people have read into comments made by the Dragon Quest team and predicted this, but I'm less convinced that this will be the case, because I feel like Final Fantasy is the series that Square Enix now is focusing on experimenting, right? That's where you experiment with the combat. That's where you try new things from that side of stuff. Dragon Quest is old reliable, right? It's turn-based, it's fantasy, it's it is what it is, slimes and all, right? And I don't see them moving away from turn-based from Dragon Quest. I feel like that would be real poorly received by Dragon Quest fans. Now, that said, you might be right. We never thought it would happen with Final Fantasy back in the day, and then Final Fantasy, I guess 12 really. I mean, if we think about that, is not when they really started to get wacky with it. 13 still had turn-based, but they even did some really cool things with the the combat there. And then by the time we were at 15, it's like, okay, well, that's that, right? We're done. And if history is taught us anything, it's that we can never really know what Square Enix is doing because they are a bit of a wild card these days.
Yeah, I hope I'm wrong about this because, like you, I like the idea of the Final Fantasy line being action combat, and
Yeah.
that's just it is what it is now. I think I would still prefer it to be turn based, but
Mhm.
they're not going to go back to turn based now. But in the new Final Fantasy 16, they're going for a very realistic art style. And some of the interviews that I've read, it basically says from the team, does it make sense to have a turn-based battle system when the rest of the game is so hyper-realistic?
Mhm.
Probably not, right? The thing about turn-based is it really is up to your imagination, right? It's coming from the tradition of board games, right?
Yeah.
Like traditional RPG games. Dragon Quest, though, if they take this grittier, more realistic approach to it that looks like 12 might have,
Mhm.
I'm concerned that it's going to be too realistic and they're going to have to ditch the turn based combat. But saying that, I'm also balancing with it, they're not going to get rid of Toriyama's artwork, right? That's
Yeah.
always going to be the art style. That's not a super realistic art style. So I don't know. I'm just really curious. And if they do go more realistic, though, I think they're going to ditch the turn based combat.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get that's just going to be a huge loss. That will be outside of, well, I don't know. Like, what's another huge turn based franchise at this point?
I mean, the only one that I can think of, and it's not even really turn-based anymore, is the Trails series, right? But that's moving away from that in the
Maybe
most recent
maybe Persona.
releases. Yeah, I guess that's the big one
It's
at the
niche,
moment.
but
It's the Megami Tensei and the Persona games, right? That's really that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, there's others. Like turn-based is still out there. I mean, we just talked recently about Chained Echoes, right? A little,
mhm,
indie throwback. But as far as major,
huge
big
AAA.
publisher JRPGs, they've almost all moved to something of a hybrid or more action-based combat at this point,
Yeah. So I
outside of
hope I'm wrong
Atlas.
about this, but I put it out there in the world. So if I'm right, I'll
Yeah.
feel good about being right. But if I'm wrong, I'll feel even better.
All right. Well, I'd like to see more about Dragon Quest 12. I'm excited about that. So I'm hoping the prediction comes true, though I do hope the second half of your prediction is wrong. I would like it to still be turn-based. But that's it for our predictions this year. I mean, just to run through them again real quick, right? My predictions are that the Metroid Prime trilogy will be announced alongside the release date for Metroid Prime 4, but it'll be a tentative 2024 release date. It won't be an official, like, hard release date. A new Donkey Kong Country will be announced this year, but with no set release date. The Tears of the Kingdom will score lower on Metacritic than Breath of the Wild, both fan and critic scores. Nintendo will release a new peripheral akin to something like the Labo, the Mario Kart Live, or Ring Fit Adventure, so something with like a peripheral attachment. And then Monolith Soft will announce a new IP this year that we have not heard about yet. Justin, go ahead and go through your 5.
Yep, mine. We will not hear or get any new Nintendo hardware this year. So no Switch 2, no Switch Pro, no Super Switch, which I'm hoping they go with as a naming
Yeah, they
convention, the Super
should.
Switch. Tears of the Kingdom will be nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards, but will lose, and I think it will lose to Spider-Man 2. My third one, Square Enix will announce and we'll get Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered. I think it's probably going to happen in the fall. Fourth prediction, the Super Mario movie is going to have a fan score of at least 85%, but I think it might even be higher. I think we're really going to be surprised with that one when it comes out. And finally, we're going to see more and possibly even get Dragon Quest 12 this year, and it will not have turn-based combat. Again, I hope I'm wrong about that one, but we'll see.
Those are the
Matthew.
Nintendo Watcher predictions for 2023. Justin, I do have one more thing for you, right?
Okay.
Just a rapid fire, quick. This is over under, right? Are we going to get? So it's a couple things, right? Some games it'll be, are we going to get delays for these? And then games with unannounced release dates, are they going to come out in the first half, second half, or 2024?
Oh,
Right?
I'm unprepared for this. Okay, all right.
So, off the top of your head, Tears of the Kingdom. Will it get will it release in May, or will it be delayed one more time?
No, we're getting it in May.
Okay. Prediction, it's coming out in May. I'm going to go with it will be delayed one more time by about a month or two.
It's already been rated, dude. It's not getting delayed again.
And we'll see. Yeah. Rating doesn't mean anything. The next one, Advanced Wars. Are we getting that in 2024? And if so, first half of the year, second half of the year, or 2023, is it going to be first half, second half, or will it not come out till 2024?
I think we get it in the summer.
Okay. Summer release date for Advanced Wars. I think we'll get it in the fall of this year. Then the big one, Hollow Knight Silksong. We were told at the Xbox event last year that it would be within a year of that event. So, by all accounts, that game should come out in the first half of this year. Therefore, the prediction is, will Silksong arrive in the first half of this year, or will it be delayed further into the second half of the year?
Delayed.
All right.
For sure, delayed.
And then last but not least,
what do you think? You think it's gonna be delayed?
I think it's actually going to come out. I think we will get it. I think it'll come out on time. That's my prediction. We will actually get it in the first half of the year because I have to hold on to that hope. Otherwise, I'll die. But the other one, this is non-Nintendo related, but we already talked about it. So I just want to double check with you. The Final Fantasy 16, will that be delayed one more time, or is it coming out when they predicted it?
I think we're getting Final Fantasy 16 on time.
Okay.
And I will go further and say I think it's going to be a return to form for Final Fantasy, in as much that it can be with action-based combat. But I think the people that hated 15 and 13, I think this one is going to make up for a lot of those missteps, or at least perceived missteps from those games.
I think so as well. I'm trying to think if there's any more, but off the top of my head, I can't think of any more big announcements that we know of that don't have release dates that we're waiting on. So we'll end it there. That's, I think, enough predictions for us this year.
Wait, I've got one for you.
Go for it.
This is non-Nintendo related, but is Starfield delayed again?
No, Starfield will not be delayed anymore. It's going to come out when they said it's coming out. I just can't see. I'm of the opinion that Xbox cannot continue to delay all of these major games any longer. I think Starfield will come out on its intended release date. What is that, November?
I think it's November.
I have heard a rumor that Redfall, the Arcane Studios co-op shooter, is going to get delayed by a couple months. And so that could push Starfield, right? There's rumor that could push Starfield, but no, I think Starfield will still arrive at its intended release date.
Hang on, I just looked it up. So Starfield is supposed to come out early 2023. Does that change your perspective?
Ooh. No, I'm gonna say it still comes out early 2023.
All right,
yeah, that's the prediction. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm again holding out hope. I think it'll make it. I think it needs to. I don't see them getting away with not.
No, they've got to at this point. They have to. All right, let's move on to our final segment, our game recommendations of the week.
Why don't you start? You got anything?
I've been only playing through Chained Echoes.
Yeah.
I am. We've got a big pod coming up soon about Chained Echoes, so I'm trying to play through it. We were texting back and forth a couple of days ago, and you said that Chained Echoes had just gotten its hooks into you.
Yeah.
Before that, you've been playing in short spurts, but then it's just like you can't put it down.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling it whenever you texted me that, but since then, it has really got its hooks in me, and I want to play it anytime I get a chance.
Yeah.
I can't play anything else.
I'm at the last boss right now. I got there today, around 27 hours. And when I texted you this about 3 days ago, I had about 6 hours into the game. Because I got about 5 hours in. I put it aside for a couple weeks because the holidays and everything. I played a couple of short sessions, and then somewhere around the 6 or 7 hour mark, something just flipped.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was right at the end of Act 1, maybe. I think
the story gets much more interesting. The characters are much more interesting.
Right around the end of Act 1, it just kind of flipped, and I was just hooked. And so every minute I had to play anything these last couple of days, it's been Chained Echoes. So that's also my recommendation, right? Get in there, play that game. We'll have more to say about that on a full pod episode for the game. But yeah, so how are you? You said it's kind of finally got your hooks in you. What are you liking about the game? Why are we recommending this game to people?
I'm a sucker for just graphically. I'm a
Mhm.
sucker for any pixel-based game with decent sized
Yeah.
characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want a good pixel-sized character. I think between that and some of the direct allusions to Chrono Cross, it's the reason people say, "Oh, it's like Chrono Cross." It looks a lot like Chrono Cross. So, number one, I
Chrono
think it's
Trigger.
beautiful.
Chrono
Or
Trigger.
I'm sorry, yeah, Chrono Trigger. Number one, I think the sprite work is just really nice. The pixel art is really beautiful.
Yeah.
The story is pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's not like groundbreaking or anything, but I think it's fun. It's
Mhm.
interesting enough to play. But I think the thing that has really spoken to me so far is just how different the characters are, especially in combat.
Yeah.
Like these characters really have their own strengths and weaknesses, and you don't have traditional job types like where one character is only a mage and one
Yeah.
character is only a healer. Like they share these sorts of jobs in a way that I think is really interesting. Like any of your characters can attack and
Yeah.
do a decent amount of damage. And if you configure it correctly, lots of them can heal. I don't know. I'm really interested in that part of it and the party makeup.
Yeah. One thing that I think about this game that really sticks out to me is that it has a very, again, we'll get into more detail about this, but just to kind of echo what you were saying, for me, the narrative does some really interesting things. It plays with some classic tropes. It pulls a lot of references to anime and other 16-bit, 32 and early PlayStation JRPGs. It takes heavy from one of my favorite games of all time, which is Xenogears. There's a lot of that in there. You have your own mechs that you can fly later on in the game and stuff like that. But the combat actually, once you unlock the mechs later on, it's a whole new combat system when you're
Mm.
piloting them, right? The way that the system navigates is completely different. There's like a gear system where you shift through gears and you attack, harder but for higher cost at higher gears, and shift down to recover energy and things like that. But in both modes of combat, something I think you pointed out is that there is a very diverse cast of characters that do different things, but they've all got some overlap. And that overlap is where it gets really interesting because you can build some really creative party compositions that make certain characters that don't really excel at much excel in tremendous ways. There's an
Hmm.
archer, for example, early on who's really only, compelling is that he can add, poison to characters. But he's also the first character to unlock a paralyze ability. And when he lands paralyzed on a target, your glass cannon katana wielder has a move that ramps up the damage of against any paralyzed target by a significant margin. And
Yeah.
so you have these abilities where, one character can apply, oil to a target, and then another character comes in with a fire attack and they get an automatic crit or weakness, damage. And so you can build these really cool, party comps to play the way you want. And it does something that I think more JRPGs need to get better at, which is making it worth casting your stat up, stat down abilities. This is a
Yeah.
game where using defense breaks or defense boosts, attack breaks, attack boosts is pretty much required for later fights. Even some, random encounters will trounce your party if you don't carefully apply statuses, blinding characters, making them weaker, putting shields up, whatever.
Even early on, like this is a
Mhm.
tough game.
Yeah, yeah, it takes a while to get used to, but that's kind of the thing to me is like once the combat started firing on all cylinders and I was seeing the way that different characters kind of layered on top of each other, I couldn't really put it down. It feels like a very basic, generic, kind of bare bones combat system in the early hours, and I think that's to its detriment because some players are going to bounce off before that.
Hmm.
We're stepping on our pod a little bit, so we'll probably end the conversation there today. Other than to say, if anything that we've said so far sounds interesting to you, you should check it out. We're going to do a full spoiler pod in a couple weeks, probably once Justin's gotten a little further into it. we probably won't spoil anything that he hasn't seen in case he doesn't beat it by then. But regardless, we will get into depth and talk more about this in a more spoilery capacity later on.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. All right, let's leave it there. Matthew,
Sounds good.
thanks as always, man. This has been great.
Yeah, pleasure.